Record now. There we go. All right, here we go. Okay, so and just so everybody is aware, yes, we are recording, but we will be editing out anyone who is appearing on camera except for me and Stephanie. So don't you worry. Okay. All right. So let me get this cutting, Stephanie, and then maybe we can talk about the health value of carrots and parsnips. Does that sound good?
Absolutely, sounds great to me.
Okay. So I cut off the tips of it because this is really where the part of the parsnip is it was connected to the plant. So this part we don't have to eat. You could use that in like a soup or a stock for flavor because you don't have to let anything go to waste, but you also can just throw it away. So if you notice, the parsnip is very uneven in its shape, right? It's very like thick on one side and thin on the other side, which we want to kind of even out, right? Because remember how I said we want every bite and every part that we cook to be even. So I'm going to cut the thin part off, and because it's using my bear claw, because it is so nice and thin, I think this piece is fry acceptable, right? It's right there in the fry shape. So I only had to cut it in half. But this thicker part here, I'm going to make sure it's nice and safe. It's flat part down. I'm going to cut that in half, put the flat part down again. And then I'm going to cut it again so that we make it into a fry shape. Okay, because we do not want it to be uneven. It will cook strangely in our ovens and not evenly. And I'm going to do that again for the carrot. And while I'm doing that, Stephanie, do you want to tell us a little bit about carrots and parsnips and why they're such healthy and nutritious root vegetables?
Absolutely. So the root vegetables are growing close to the ground. They're in the soil, and the soil contains all different nutrients. And even though we pick them out of the soil, they have been growing in that nutrient-rich soil, and so they have those nutrients in them, such as beta carotene, such as fiber that I mentioned before, and how important fiber is. Parsnips are a little bit different in terms of how they taste versus carrots. And I find them to be a very unique taste. And I wouldn't have known that unless I tried them. So that's one of the things I always encourage people to do, is try something new, because you might surprise yourself at what it tastes like. It sort of is a cross between the sweetness of a carrot and the starchiness of a potato. And so it's a unique kind of complex flavor.
Yeah, and I would also like to remind everybody, especially the kids on the call, but also the parents, it takes the average person 7 tries to like a new food. 7 times. So even though you don't like something the first time, that doesn't mean you won't like it the 7th or the 3rd or the 2nd. And you might like it different ways. You may not like raw carrots, but you really might like carrot fries. So as you can see, I have everything evenly splayed out on my baking sheet here, and I've lined my baking sheet with parchment paper. You don't have to. I just think it's a little bit of easier cleanup. You could also use foil. You could use those silicone mats. That also works. And I'm going to take my olive oil, which I've measured out, because while it's a really healthy fat for us, we don't want to use a ton of it. We want to use just the right amount. And I like to use my hands. I think my hands are the best cooking tools around. So I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to toss it evenly in the olive oil so that there aren't any pools of olive oil anywhere. And I have preheated my oven to the right temperature, 400 degrees. Yep, 400 degrees. So I'm going to pop this in the oven after I season it. Now I'm just going to season it with a little salt. You could skip the salt altogether if that's something that you and your family prefer. You could use garlic powder. You could use paprika. You could use even cinnamon would be really nice on these for cinnamon French fries. And Stephanie, what is the benefit for these being baked French fries versus fried French fries? Like, are all French fries the same?
So I'm glad you asked. So when we're baking something, we are using a cooking technique that is going to give a certain crispness to it, and it's going to maintain a lot of the nutrients, but the food is not absorbing as much of the oil as it would if you were deep frying something. We do want a little bit of the oil that's there because, believe it or not, when food is cooked in oil, it helps us to absorb some of the nutrients like vitamin D, which is a fat soluble vitamin. So we do want to have some added fat, but we don't want to have excessive amounts in fried food.
Awesome. But then also from a culinary perspective, just so everybody understands that fat is flavor, right? So having a little bit of the healthy olive oil, which is so great for your heart, so great for your brain, so great for all of us in so many different ways. It also makes us feel satisfied from food. It makes us like the food. It makes it taste really delicious. And that's really important too, to feel like food tastes good. Food is meant to be enjoyable. It's meant to be social. So having the fat in our cooking, in our diets, it makes everything taste better, but we want to do it in moderation. Okay, so some of you might still be working on the carrots and the parsnips and cutting that up, and that's totally fine. And to keep us moving, I'm going to move on to our next recipe. If there are any questions in the chat about the carrots and the parsnip sweet potato, feel free to put them in, or if you have a question, you can also raise your hand. I'm not seeing any right now, so I'm going to keep going to make sure that we have time for everything. So our next recipe is a healthy dessert recipe. And I say that because Stephanie and I definitely both agree that dessert is something we can have every day if we pick the most nutritious choices, right, Stephanie?
Yes, absolutely. It can be part of a balanced way of eating. And the best way to eat is balancing everything together. And every day is not the same. And having something that is dessert-like can give us satisfaction. When we feel more satisfied, we stop eating sooner, right? We want to be satisfied with our food choices and not still feel like we're missing something.
Exactly. So we are going to start with a dark chocolate recipe. And this is a recipe called chocolate dipped apple slices. And I love this recipe because you can really make it your own in how you want it to be. So I'm starting with some rich dark chocolate here, some rich dark chocolate chips, as you guys can see. And any brand is fine, any variety. I'm gonna pop this in the microwave in small time intervals so that I do not burn the chocolate. And I advise you guys to do the same, like every 30 seconds or so, pop it in, mix it around so that it doesn't burn and we're melting it easily. Stephanie, what is the difference between milk and dark chocolate, and why is dark chocolate so much healthier for us?
I'm glad you asked. So dark chocolate, believe it or not, contains protein and fiber and some of the other nutrients that are missing from milk chocolate because more of the content of the cocoa has been replaced with some sugar. So milk chocolate might taste a little bit sweeter because it does have a higher sugar content, but you sort of miss out a little bit on the nutrients that you would get from dark chocolate, like iron and zinc and magnesium and phosphorus, which are really good for our immune system, our bones, for so many different reasons. So every time you eat dark chocolate, you are getting some benefit for all those different parts of our body, including our heart. So choosing the dark chocolate is really going to be great for you. I think what happens sometimes is people go to like 80 or 90% dark chocolate, which is more bitter, and they get a little discouraged. You don't have to go that high in the dark chocolate content. You can do like a 60 or 70%, and every brand is a little bit different. So maybe try a different brand if you tried one and didn't like it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. This one that I'm choosing is 70% dark because that's the sweet spot that my family and I like. But some people really prefer 60% and some people prefer 80%. And like you said, every brand is different. So you got to experiment and keep trying. But what we're going to make today is a chocolate dipped apples. But again, this is a method you could use with anything. You could have chocolate dipped berries. You could have chocolate dipped bananas. You could have chocolate dipped graham crackers. So many different options you can do. As you can see, my chocolate was just starting to melt in here, and I'm going to give this a mix and see how it's looking. And sometimes when you melt it, and I'm going to add my coconut oil to it to give it a little bit better of what's called viscosity. That means it's gonna be a little thinner, a little smoother. You could use vegetable oil too if you don't have coconut oil. I like the coconut-y flavor, so I am using a little bit of coconut oil. But it makes it a little bit smoother, as you can see, shinier, glossier. It's gonna make it much easier to dip my apple slices in.
And what Amy said just now is really important. We eat with our eyes. So if something looks glossier or shinier or more appealing, all of a sudden we're going to enjoy it even more. So that's another added benefit of adding that, and the chocolate will stick to the item that you're putting it on a little bit differently. And so all those are great reasons why we're adding that combination together.
Exactly. So, and I'm using a plant-based oil, like coconut oil. Is a little bit healthier than mixing in some butter, which sometimes you see in a lot of recipes. So I can set this aside. As you see, I melted the chocolate chips until they looked like they were just about melted, and then they naturally melt by being all together. The heat, the group heat makes them melt even more. So now we're going to talk about cutting the apple. A lot of people have tools like this in their house, an apple slicer, apple corer, which is completely and perfectly fine if that's your preference. But you also could just use a regular old knife, okay? And the best way to do that, again, protecting your hands, is to slice them in half and then put the flat side down. Protecting your hand again, you're gonna cut them in quarters, okay? And then here's the fun part. You're gonna put your knife on an angle and cut out the core. Okay, and if it doesn't quite get all the way out like I did, it's not, no one's perfect. I'm just gonna do it again. And now it's out, okay? And what I'm gonna do with this, again, putting the flat side down, is I'm gonna make my slices nice and thin. Cutting that again in 4s. And you can use whatever apple you want. You could use a green apple. You could use a Red Delicious apple. You could use a Fuji apple. Whatever floats your boat and whatever looks good in the store that day. I'm using Fuji apples because that's what I happen to have. But anyone, if you use the green apple, it'll be like a little more tart, which maybe is your preference. If you want it to be super, super sweet, maybe you'll use a Honeycrisp. And Stephanie, what is the deal? I mean, we say apple a day keeps the doctor away. Why are apples so healthy for us?
They really, really are. They have so many different nutrients in them, and they protect us and help our immune system in lots of different ways. I mentioned fiber before. The theme today of a lot of the things we're talking about are foods that have a lot of fiber, but there are other nutrients that you might not think of, like vitamin C and vitamin A. There are also some of the antioxidants that we talked about earlier. Basically, every day our body has to defend itself against lots of different things in the environment, in the air, etc. And so when we have more antioxidants in the foods that we're eating, our body is better able to do that, and our immune system is stronger. Apples are naturally low in carbohydrate. We need a balance of carbohydrate, protein, and fat in our meal choices in our foods, but that's one of the foods where they're naturally lower in carbohydrate, which is really nice to help us with that balancing act that we're doing day in and day out. And they're important for our gastrointestinal system and for our heart, and every organ in the body benefits from the nutrients that are in apples. So that's one of the reasons why it's said an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I'm sure you've all heard, because there are so many different nutrients packed into the one thing. I do want to do a little tiny pitch for trying to eat based on the season that you're in. Apples are across many different areas of the world, especially if you're in New York. Seasonally wise, it's always easy to get an apple. When you get something seasonal, it doesn't have to be picked so fast. It could stay on the vine longer. And when foods are on the vine longer, they retain their nutrients.
Yeah, so that's definitely true. So us in New York, we're really lucky that apples are something really local to us. But perhaps you're lucky enough to live in a place where mangoes are local to you, or where pineapples are local to you, or any other delicious fruit, berries. that certainly is something you could use and substitute in this recipe as well, to stay with your local seasonal produce. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each piece of my apple and I'm going to dip it halfway in, and I'm going to use the toppings that I've picked. So like I said, I really like coconut. I use coconut oil in our recipe today to smooth it out. And I'm going to use unsweetened coconut flakes as my topping. One, because I think it looks really pretty. Two, because I really like coconut. And three, because it'll just enhance the coconut flavor even more. It's a healthy fat. It's loaded with fiber. So I really like that one. And then I'm also going to use some freeze-dried fruit. Freeze-dried fruit is a fun one in my house. My little boys love them. I'm using crushed up freeze-dried strawberries today, again, because I think it'll look really pretty. I think it'll be a really wonderful, interesting topping, and keep it nice and healthy. Stephanie, as I'm doing that, maybe you could tell us a little bit about, there were lots of choices for toppings in this recipe. Which one do you think would be the best one if you wanted it to be like a more of a nourishing snack versus a dessert choice?
Sure. So depending on what we put in the combination here, let's say, for example, we did some nuts or some seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, some slivered almonds, which are easy to find in the store, or you can crush your nuts that way. You would get some added benefit there of some protein. You would get some omega-3 fatty acids. You'd get some additional fiber. So that would be one topping or add-on that you could do with this recipe that would give you an additional boost of healthy fat and some healthy protein. And then there are other types of dried fruits that you could do as well, depending on what you like. The coconut is a favorite in my house as well. We do tons of things with coconut, but the nuts and the seeds are something that people don't always consider. And those can really give us a good nutrient powerhouse there.
Definitely. And as you guys can see, it's a little messy, and that's fine. Cooking is supposed to be a little messy. It's supposed to be a little bit fun. That's why I have this towel next to me. And it's a sensory experience. So parents, if everyone's making a mess in the kitchen right now, that's what's supposed to happen. That's totally fine, and encouraged 100%. It's like natural versions of Play-Doh and arts and crafts, 100%. So, and a really nice way to unwind at the end of the school day. So I am half dipping. I've been doing my coconut, which I hope you guys can see. And now I'm going to do some of my freeze-dried fruit. And I'm just going to play. I'm just going to keep dipping and half dipping just because it's easier and it winds up being a little bit prettier. But if you're bold and you want to dip the whole apple slice in there, you definitely can do that. And you can mix it up and make any topping you want part of this recipe. And after you've done all of your dipping, you can eat it like this. But if you want to save it for after dinner and you want it to, like, what's called set, for the chocolate to get like a crunchy shell, you just pop this in the refrigerator, and then it will get its nice little crunchy shell on the outside. The chocolate will set and then give it a nice crunchy shell.
Yeah, so we have a question in the chat that I want to address. So
Yeah.
someone had asked about coconut oil substitute if you don't want to use coconut oil. So Amy had said earlier that any vegetable oil would be fine. Vegetables are plant-based, and so those are healthier than using butter, which would have more saturated fat. But any oil would be okay to use. Coconut oil does tend to pair very well with chocolate in terms of the flavors really complementing each other. And that's why coconut oil tends to be used very often in melting chocolate. But if you didn't have that, or you wanted to use a different vegetable oil, you could use what you had in the house as well.
Yes. What I would say is, remember, look, very important point that Stephanie made, that oil has a specific flavor. So olive oil is a very strong flavor. It might be something that you like in combination with this, but it definitely has a strong flavor. More neutral oils like vegetable oil, sunflower seed oil, safflower seed oil, those would be much more neutral in terms of not, what we say, imposing its flavor on your recipe, right? You want to use something like that for baking, so that your baking recipes or your dessert recipes taste the way you want them to and not overpower them.
That's a great point, and you might want to play around with different things because different things do have different looks and different smells and different tastes. And so what works in your house might be different from what works in someone else's house. And that's the great thing about being the adventurer and trying different things.
Right, exactly. So like I'll give a non-baking related point. If I'm making a stir fry, for example, I want to use things like a peanut oil or a sesame seed oil because it's going to enhance the flavor of my cooking. Versus this, I don't want to taste it really, except if I didn't want to taste it at all, I would use like a vegetable oil. Coconut oil, same thing, gives it a little bit of a stronger flavor. So you definitely would want that if you wanted a strong coconut flavor. So this is how it's looking right now. I'm going to pop that in the refrigerator so that it gets a nice hard coating and my apples don't turn brown.
Those look
Awesome.
amazing.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
I see so much for the people who have their cameras on. I'm so excited to see what everyone is creating in their kitchens. It's really inspiring to see families doing things together and making things together. And that's
Yes.
also why we encourage family cook along, because there's a bonding experience that goes on. There's a confidence level that gets raised. Those are all the things that we're really looking to instill with our participants.
That, and also sometimes it's really easy to have conversations when you're cooking. You know, sometimes some of the kids on the call might relate to what I'm saying. Like my sons come home from school and they're kind of tired and they don't really want to talk so much. But if I get them in the kitchen with me, somehow all the stories from the day start coming out. Because it's a really nice way to connect and bond with each other. So working together in the kitchen is a really, really nice bonding experience too, in addition to eating together. Okay, our last and final recipe, and the reason we did this in this order is what we call mise en place. So mise en place is a French expression that means you want things to be done in the right order so that everything comes together neatly at the end, right? So the French fries took the longest, which I'm going to check on, but they then needed the longest time. We had to do them first. The apples are second. They take a while because want the chocolate to set. So they went second. And now the third one is the one that you want to eat pretty much as close to dinner time as you possibly can. And that is our healthy tortilla hack. So you guys might have seen this on TikTok like a year or so ago. I thought it was really cool and I still like to do it because I think it's a really, really awesome recipe. So this is like a fancy quesadilla, okay? I'm gonna take a whole wheat tortilla here, and it's a burrito sized one because it's a little easier to work with. But if you don't have a burrito sized one and you wanna use a different one, that's fine too, okay? So I'm gonna use a pizza cutter, but again, you could just use a regular knife. And I'm gonna start in the middle of my circle and I'm gonna make one slice down. That's it, just one slice out, okay? So if you look at it, I have not cut it all the way through. I have cut it from halfway to the end and it's still all hold together. It's kind of like Pac-Man, if you guys know what that is. Okay, all right, so this is a recipe that you really make your own. This is a method that I'm teaching you guys. You could make an Italian pizza version of this. You could make a peanut butter and jelly version of this. You could make so many different versions of this. It's just a method. So today we're going to make it kind of like Mexican inspired flavors. And it's all plant-based, except, all vegetarian. So in each quarter, so this is our fractions here. So those of you who are really good at math and good at fractions will know exactly what I'm talking about. In this circle, there are 4 quarters, okay? In each of the quarters, we're gonna put something there and we're gonna have it build on itself, all right? So in the first quarter, I'm gonna put my black beans here, okay? Stephanie, between the black beans and the whole grain tortilla, and we talked a little bit about this, but why is the fiber and the nutrition from the fiber so important for our bodies?
So fiber has so many important benefits for our bodies, and we know that young people don't always get enough of it, and that's really important that we do. It helps us to be able to have a really strong immune system. Fiber helps us to get rid of the stuff that we don't need. So we digest our food, we metabolize our food, and we say bye-bye to the things that our body doesn't need. So it helps with the elimination process. It helps to fuel the microbiome, which might sound like a complicated term, but it's basically the busy network going on inside of our body that has to deal with the different microorganisms that help to support our health. And so it fuels them and keeps them correctly balanced. Fiber is also important for our heart, for lowering cholesterol. It has a lot of benefits. So both the black beans and the whole grain tortilla both contain fiber. They just contain different types of fiber. And that's what's really great for our body when we give it different sources of nutrients so that our body uses them in different ways. And so the beans are a source of fiber and the whole grain tortilla are a source of fiber. And they also have different nutrient profiles.
Awesome. So in here, I have my 4 different sections. I have my black beans. I have my salsa, which I'm using. You could also just use tomatoes if that's your preference. I have some shredded cheddar cheese in 1/4, and then I have my avocado. If you've never seen inside an avocado before, there is a beautiful pit inside of there. I just sliced it from stem to stem around the pit, and then I twisted and pulled it apart. And a whole avocado would be too much. I'm using 1/4 of the avocado for the portion here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build it on itself. And I realized, see, everybody makes mistakes. I should have put the black beans on one of these sections. And that happens sometimes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to fix my mistake. And you know what? When you cook in the kitchen, there's really always an easy way to fix your errors. I'm just going to slide my salsa over here, because what would happen is otherwise the black beans would go sliding. So I'm going to put my black beans in the next 1/4. All
And
right.
lots of times when you're watching cooking shows, there might be a pause and you don't see their mistakes, but everyone sometimes has a little bit of a mistake that they make when they're cooking. And sometimes
Yeah.
you find out when you do that you like it better a certain way. So
Yeah.
that's never any problem with that.
Yeah. Very fixable. All right. So I took the first 1/4 and I folded it over itself. Then I'm going to take my next 1/4, my 1/4 here, I'm going to fold that over itself. And then last but not least, I'm going to fold it onto the cheese. Okay. And I have my hot plate right next to me, nice and hot, using some cooking spray so that it doesn't stick. I'm going to take my folded tortilla here, my fake out quesadilla, and I put it right here next to me on the pan. And basically what I'm doing is just like warming up the tortilla and helping to melt the cheese. That's basically what I'm doing. And then I'm going to flip it. Kids, if you are doing this and you are on the younger side, not supposed to use the stove by yourself, certainly be careful, as stoves are dangerous. And you want to be really careful not to burn yourself. But as you get comfortable, this could certainly be a recipe you could make for yourself.
And Amy, can I add that
Yeah.
technically all the ingredients that are in there don't have to be heated up. If you choose to just assemble it the way that Amy did and eat it that way cold, the black beans that are canned black beans or ones you've prepared already are already cooked, cheese and avocado and salsa. So all of those technically could be eaten cold. So you don't have to cook them if you really were in the mood to have that, but you weren't allowed to use the stove. And then also, I know a lot of people that like to eat things cold in the morning. You might think of cold pizza, but a cold tortilla hack would also be something. So if you made it the day before or you made extra, that could be something that you could eat cold if you didn't want to heat it up.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Stephanie. And eggs would also be really good in here. If you wanted it to make it like a breakfasty kind of flavor. You could definitely add eggs to this recipe. All right, so you see it's getting some golden brown, kind of like grilled cheese looking. And Stephanie, what about, we didn't talk about the avocado a little bit. What makes it so nutritious? What makes this a great thing to add to this recipe?
Yeah, so avocados contain a lot of nutrients. I think it's like 20 different nutrients in an avocado. You keep hearing me say the word fiber. Fiber is definitely one of them, but there are lots of other vitamins and minerals in avocado. The healthy fats you heard me mention before. It has vitamin E, which is really important for us. To go back to the healthy fats for a second, what those do is they compete in our body for some of the less healthy fats, and we tend to absorb the healthy fats more. And that's really important for our circulation, for our heart health, for our brain health, believe it or not. Our brain needs those important nutrients as well, and our immune system. When we have different nutrients in the correct balance, then everything else works the right way as well. And our body overall is able to function at its best.
Awesome. So this is looking about done. And if you're making this for a lot of people, you just keep going. Just make a few of them. This would also be a really good after school snack, especially if you're going to play sports. You could have something like this. Maybe share it with somebody. Be a really good snack size. Really nourishing snack for sure. I'm just gonna move that away so I don't burn myself. And I'm gonna go back to using my pizza cutter, which is called a pizza wheel, but it shouldn't be. It's used for, I could use it for so many different things. So I'm gonna cut this in half and show you what it looks like on the inside.
The big reveal, it looks pretty good already.
There we go.
Looks delicious.
That's what it looks like inside.
You could always add some more salsa on the side, some more salsa on top if you wanted to. I forgot to mention before, the things that were selected in this tortilla hack, one of the reasons the two nutritionists selected them was for their nutrient profiles. The vitamin C that's contained in the salsa, or tomatoes if you chose to use that, actually helps our body to absorb some of the iron that's in the beans, and some of the iron that's in the cheese. So when we have a vitamin C source with our protein source that has iron in it, we absorb those nutrients even more. It's kind of this great thing that our body's able to do. It enhances the absorption of the nutrients.
Such a good point, Stephanie. So I'm going to show everyone what it looks like with the carrots and sweet potato fries here. Right, so you can see here. Yep. So that would be great dinner, ready to go. I'm going to pull out our apples as well. Stephanie, are there any questions in the chat? The apples look like they still need a little more time, so I'm going to give that a few more minutes.
I think that we had one comment that the bear claw is great, and I really do love that technique. And then the coconut oil was the only other one. People are saying that it looks good and it's making them hungry. I wish I was in the room with Amy too, because then I could sample some of the stuff. But
Yeah,
I'm
the smell-o-vision.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of the plates of the people that are sharing the camera. Does anyone want to put their camera on just momentarily for us to see what they created? There's no pressure, but if you wanted to, you could. That's looking delicious.
Oh, that looks beautiful.
That is really awesome.
If anybody else wants to show, I'd love to see.
I know yeah.
Gorgeous. Awesome,
Delicious.
Amalia.
Really great. I know that in my house, when my daughter creates something and then she shares it on Instagram and takes pictures of everything, then she is helping her peers, her friends, her Instagram people to also see, wow, that looks pretty good. And it gets people curious. And then we are then actually educating other people as well, because then we lead by example, and then we're able to set a good example for the people that are in our environment.
Exactly. Let's see if we can do a couple more trivia questions. Oh, Amalia, your apples look beautiful. I love it. Awesome job. All right, let's see how much they learned, Stephanie. Let's do.
Yeah.
a first question here. Okay, so true or false, everyone? Parsnips do not have any nutritional value because they're white in color. True or false? So far, it's looking good. Looks like everyone was paying attention. Let's see. Everyone got it right. Stephanie, what's the answer?
The answer is false. We want to
Awesome.
eat those parsnips.
All right, let's see. Next question. All right. Orange carrots are rich in what? A B vitamin that supports eye health and so much more. Question from Amalia. Could you put a little sour cream on the burrito? I think a little bit would be fine, or you could use plain Greek yogurt as well. But a little bit, I think is fine. What do we think, Stephanie?
Absolutely. Sure. That would be fine. Everything in moderation.
All right. So we have a little bit of a split with this one here. Is it vitamin D, vitamin C, or beta carotene, Stephanie?
So the correct answer is beta carotene. And I might not have explained that one well enough. I apologize if I didn't. Beta carotene is actually a precursor to vitamin A. So beta carotene is what's in our food, and our body does this amazing thing where it converts it to vitamin A. And so that's why people often associate carrots with being good for your eye health, because we take the beta carotene and then that's very nutritious for us.
Awesome. All right, we have time for a few more questions. Let's see. Dark chocolate. Okay, true or false? Dark chocolate is a great sweet treat to enjoy every day for dessert. True or false, everyone? What do you think? True or false? All right, we got a mixed bag here too. We're getting some trues, we're getting some falses. Let's see. And Stephanie, what's the answer?
So the answer is true. You can have dark chocolate every single day. It's giving you a source of protein, a source of fiber, and some nutrients. So everything again in moderation. So if I'm having a serving of dark chocolate, perfectly fine every day, and it is enjoyable. And like I said before, if we're having something that we're looking forward to and that's something that's enjoyable, we shouldn't feel bad about eating it. We should feel like it's healthy for us. And so you can have that every day.
100%. All right, now this one, let's see if they were really paying attention. We talked a lot about fiber today. Fiber is so important for our bodies because it helps keep us full. It helps keep our heart healthy, keeps our tummies and digestive system moving along, or all of the above. What do we think the answer is? Let's see. And the answer is, most people said all of the above. Stephanie, what's the answer?
The answer is all of the above. It does all of those wonderful things for us. It's important for our health in terms of keeping our heart healthy, making us full and satisfied. And like I said, it contains those important fibers that are important for our digestive system.
So let's see. There are some questions in the chat. Let me just make sure I get to them. Oh, I could use some chocolate spread on my crepes for my family. That's a great idea, Sweta. I thought it was a trick about the chocolate because everything in variation versus moderation. Amalia, do you have to flip the fries in the oven? Yeah, you could definitely flip them if you want to, for sure, because then it'll get crispy on all sides. You could definitely flip them.
And if you can't flip them, you can move them around.
Yes.
But yes, then that way all the sides cook evenly.
Yes. Foods rich in fiber. Which foods are rich in fiber? Black beans, whole grain tortilla, cheese, or black beans and whole grain tortilla? Everybody says. See, most people said black beans and whole grain tortilla, and they nailed it.
Yep, absolutely. Both really good sources of fiber, which are important for so many reasons.
All right, 2 more questions, everyone. Avocado is healthy for your heart because it is rich in saturated fat, it is rich in fiber, it is rich in unsaturated plant-based fat, or it is rich in fiber and unsaturated and plant-based fat. Let's see. Looks like our audience was really paying attention. Stephanie, what's the answer?
The answer is what everyone said. It's rich in fiber and unsaturated plant-based fat. And I apologize for not using the word unsaturated, but that's the great thing about plants. They don't have saturated fat, whereas animal proteins and animal foods do have saturated fat.
And our final question of today, true or false, the most important colored fruits and vegetables to eat are purple, blue, and green. So we didn't say this one specific. Let's see what they say. True or false, the most important colored fruits and vegetables to eat are blue, purple, and green. Kind of have a mixed bag here. Let's see what everybody says. All right, so we have a mix, pretty much a 50-50 split. Stephanie, what's the answer here?
So it's actually false because all colored vegetables and fruits give us different nutrients. Like we said, the parsnips are white, they still give us nutrients. And so any color fruit or vegetable is fine for us. And actually, one of the best things for our health is having a different variety of fruits and vegetables, because that way we get a bunch of different nutrients into our body each time we have a meal or a snack. And that whole combination creates a balanced pattern of eating. And that's what's important for us.
Right, we want to eat the rainbow. Oh, Brian, those fries look, oh, those apples, those are the apples, they look great. Awesome job. Thank you for sharing. I love it. Awesome, awesome job. Does anyone have any last questions or anyone else want to share before we end today's class? All right, well, parents, we hope you have a complete dinner made now for your kids. You have everything all together, dessert included. So hopefully have an easy night for yourselves. We want to thank you all so much for cooking with us. We hope you had some fun. We hope you learned something. Stephanie is dropping some resources in the chat, so that would be really helpful to you guys.
Sorry, I forgot to do that earlier.
No, that's okay.
This is the first time we're doing this, and I'm learning too.
We can definitely email them out afterwards as well. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us. That looks so great, Brian. Really, really good job. Awesome. Thank everyone for joining us. There will be a survey that pops up on your screen automatically. Please, please, please fill it out so we know how we did and we know what we can do better moving forward and see how much you guys learned. And on behalf of everyone, thank you and have a great night. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll keep you posted on future classes. We don't have any dates.
Take care.